Greetings from your Northeast Texas District Office. Pam and I have been praying for you this year as we've entered into this time of Advent, and we trust that each church and each congregation has enjoyed the opportunity to be reminded again of the wonderful truth of this season for us. Well, one of the things about this video today that we wanted every pastor to get a hold of is we have some important things that we are involved in on our district. When I came on the district 3 years ago, there was kind of an interesting thing that I noticed. We had very few people in our process of district licensing. It was a little disturbing because I believe that one of the things that we could accomplish on our district is to have people that can be able to go in and help our churches when we have empty churches or transitional churches and also staff. And so it concerned me that we were not really what I've termed as having a good farm club. We have great people in the farm club, but not many. And so as I began to think through the process and we began to talk with the Board of Ministry, we began to realize that some things needed to change. And so we are talking about that today. Now there's some things that were very obvious that we wanted to address, and that was what I addressed at our district assembly. When I talked about that we're all about the one, which is our theme for last assembly, and we'll be carrying that on. If you remember the third point, I'm sure you all remember all 4 points, but on the third point it was to support and encourage the ones called. Well, one of the things that came to mind is what can we do different? Well, one of the things that we're trying to do, and Scott McDorman has agreed to take on our Board of Ministry this year, was first of all that we wanted to make sure we developed a program or a path for those that are on the process of ministry and those that are called to support and encourage the ones called. So we began to think about what does that look like. So Scott and Mark Hendrick went around and got some ideas from other districts. And so we are implementing something new, and we needed to kind of get that information out to you. And we thought the best form to do that would be in video. So one of the things that has really come to mind is a lot of our candidates were coming in, and we'd meet them a half hour every year. And it went fine. We had some good conversations, but when we walked away at times, did we really accomplish what we wanted to accomplish? And so the thing that came to mind was, what could we do a little bit better to bring someone alongside and people alongside them to help walk in the process that they are in? And so we began to think what that would look like. Another thing that happened in our mindset was we saw people just checking the boxes. Okay, they got this study done, they got these amount of hours, and so all that was checked off, and so it was an automatic ordination. And even though we didn't struggle strongly in that area, it just didn't seem like box checking was the thing to do. And so we began to think again, what can we do differently? And then the other thing is we wanted to understand and give some things that the person's going through the process could really get a handle on and spend some time with them and provide mentoring for them outside the local church. We know that you in the local church are doing a great job, but having someone else to walk with and having someone else that they could call on and having someone to just come alongside and walk with them through this process, we felt was very important, along with your involvement in their lives. And so we've developed a new system. We're still working on it, still tweaking some of that. But we think that we have come up with an idea to begin a process that would help those involved in the process of ministry and those feeling called that could be better prepared for when that ordination day comes. And so this year we are implementing, and this is why this video is so important. We want you to share this video with your board, and you take the time, because there are some critical things that you're going to hear today that we need you to help us with, especially involved in timing. We have schedules and we have things that we need to meet to help us to implement this. And so Scott's going to take a few moments after I'm done here to speak to those issues. But what I really want to encourage you is that we desire to help the candidates that are in your local church that are feeling called in ministry to have the best possible input into their lives for ministry. We're going to deal with some things in their marriage. We're going to talk about strengths and weaknesses in their lives. We're going to have some practical things. We're trying to talk SNU into coming to be a part of it so that they can bring some of their professors in to help us in some of the areas of doctrine, some of the areas of theology, preaching. So it's not just checking boxes. It's really practice. And then one of the most important things that we felt like was really vital to this setting that we're providing for this weekend that you'll hear about is we want to provide relationships that tie people that are in the process together to kind of like what they use in some of the areas of online education, cohorts, so that they get acquainted with one another and they get a chance to have some fellowship and begin to talk about ministry. And then we're going to also try to provide roundtable discussions to just have the practice of ministry. What are you facing? What are some of the difficult tasks? So as Scott shares with you now, I just appreciate Scott being willing to take on this, and he is excited about this, and he is taking the Board of Ministry through some ideas, and we have developed, we're still developing, we haven't arrived, but this is going to be a good time. So I'm going to turn this time over to Scott, and please again, remember this is vital that you let your church board in on this so that they are aware of what we're trying to do. Scott, I want to thank you for being willing to do this, and I know this is a new path that we're following. But I'm excited, and I know you were excited, and as you visited these other districts, you began to realize how important this was, and you jumped on board and began to work with our district personalities and all, and began to develop that. So kind of tell our pastors what you're kind of looking at in this weekend that's before us in a few more months.
So the weekend is just a plan to start to get together with the individuals who are in training for the ministry. That they would have a place where they can get to know other people going through the same process, where they can work on understanding how to work through reality of our theology and what we do, not just the working knowledge of what's in the text, but how to actually apply it to life, how to explain it to others as they would talk with those about being sanctified, being saved. And then our idea is that we would teach them the basics of how to do budgeting, how to do church finance, just any kind of practice that we can do to help them be successful in their ministry as they get through ordination and move into the process.
And we're also doing something a little different by bringing a counselor in. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the counselor will come in and do some training with each of the new ministers in training, and what their intent is to do is kind of walk them through some marriage stuff, some of their strengths, some of their weaknesses, how to look for things that could come up in the midst of ministry because of your strength and because of your weaknesses, and that'll help them maybe be better prepared and hopefully be better prepared for what lies ahead.
And we're wanting the spouses to be a part of this because we feel like everyone else, that our spouse is an important asset to ministry. And so having them there that weekend is very important. Is that correct?
Yes. We'd really like all the spouses because we want that commitment from the start so that they understand really what they're getting into and what the call looks like. We also would ask of all the board if they would be able to help with to take care of kids so that they would be able to come and freely spend the weekend not worrying about their kids at home so that they can learn the things necessary to be successful in ministry.
So it would be helpful then we talked about deadlines. And being with you in these meetings, I began to realize you're a deadline person. You believe, and I think it's important that we realize, and how you realize, is that all of our lives are deadlines.
Sure.
And so we feel like it's important, but not only does the student have a deadline or the person in ministry have a deadline, we have our local churches that need to follow deadlines. So why don't you give that breakdown, if you would?
Okay. So the second week in January, everybody will receive an application. The ministers in training will receive an application. And then if you have a new minister in training or someone who has a local license who's wanting to get their district license, if you'll let the church district know that, we will get a application out to them for that process. Then our due date for that will be February 27th, and it's a gotta be done deadline. And the reason we're doing that is we just really feel like, I always think of it this way, it would be very sad if you show up late for a funeral or a wedding or even Sunday morning to preach because you can't meet a deadline. So our desire is that we start to train our folks in their responsibility of becoming the fullness of what they desire to be as a pastor.
And the local church is very helpful in making that happen because they have to approve the person before that date also. And
Yes.
They can't fill out their paperwork. They can have it all filled out,
Yeah.
but if the board hasn't done their part, it kind of throws things for all of us into making it real tough to catch up.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit, walk really quickly through what the weekend looks like that we're planning in March. And when is that date in March?
So March 20th is a Friday, and they'll come about lunchtime. We'll have lunch together in a group, and they'll sit at tables for just open discussion of maybe any questions they have, maybe something they've studied this year and had question on, or what they need to do, or how they need to accomplish a task, or how they need to go about life in ministry, or maybe even just a ministry struggle where we can help speak into that. Then we'll move into breaking out the folks who are new. This is their first year. We're going to break them out and give them the practicals of what it looks like to walk from the beginning to ordination, so that they know the schooling that they need to have, some of the things that they need to learn, and the expectation that we have. In that study, we'll also teach them about our mentor program, where they'll have someone that they're responsible to set up times for, again, teaching accountability and responsibility, to meet with someone regularly so that they can have just another voice to speak into their life, just like the pastor and the board does. So that's
and the thing about mentoring, you're talking about them having someone, and that's why we're adding some new members to the board of ministry, is to have someone that meets with them throughout the year between this retreat time that we're having, and that so that there becomes a familiarity with the students, so that there's somebody, as we would say, can go to bat for them because they've had a chance to meet with them, not just in a weekend setting. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Another voice to speak into who they are, other than when you meet with them for 30 minutes, you get a very topical understanding of who they are, but you don't get the depths of really their heart and their desire to serve and their calling. So it helps to have someone who's spent 4 or 5 hours with them over the year just to know them, so they could speak into, if one of our board members has a question, well, I didn't like the way they answered that mentor can speak into, hey, we've talked about this, and this is really what they're trying. So it helps clarify and take out some of the have to follow up with them and get back and forth. I think it makes it a lot smoother.
And as you can tell, this is quite intense, but we believe the intensity is what's needed. Not to kick anybody out of the program, but to strengthen them in the program. And it's an opportunity for us as a district to do what I believe is our due diligence, to make sure that we do what we need to do in the correct manner to help the students and to help the individuals. Some are already pastoring, but it gives them a place to go. It gives them a place to have conversation, and that's what really the whole weekend's about. So that's why this video is very important for you as a pastor, to please take the time. Now, some of you at churches don't have anybody right now that is pursuing ministry, but that's why that third point of my report was to support, to encourage and support the ones called. And I believe, as I've gone around through the district, there are some people that are being called in our local churches, and I'd like for you to really seek that out, to take the time, and then we can come with you and join you in the process. So it isn't just the local church, it's the district family helping each other to develop the people that we want to help us in our local churches. So I'm excited about this, and I trust that you'll take the time to read through it. Now, there is a cost factor, and I think we need to make sure before we end this tape, this time of video, that you tell us a little bit about that, if the need is there for them to understand what the breakdown is.
Yeah, so our breakdown is, we're asking of the minister in training $75. We're asking for the church a commitment saying we value and believe that they're called to ministry, and that would be $75. And then the district itself will pay $75 towards the weekend. And that'll cover the counseling, room and board, food, and all the materials necessary for it.
Yeah, we're doing this at Scottsville, and we don't want the district to have to take on the full responsibility, but if that's hard for the student to provide the $75 or the local church, we want to be sensitive to that. So we're giving you kind of the opportunity and permission to call us and let us know that maybe you can't, and we'll do our best to provide what they call grants or scholarships to help. But we feel like in that breakdown, there's a buy-in together. In the local church, the person that's following the call, and the district. So together, we're trying to help make this happen. So I trust that you will take the time, again, to listen to this video, and you have an opportunity for your board to hear it so that we know, so they know and aware of what the district is trying to do. This is part of that third point of my report, to be able to help how can the district help you to be effective? And this is one of our steps. So have a great holiday season. Be prepared after the 1st of January. You're going to be hearing more and more from your candidate up for ministry that's pursuing their license, and please help them get the board approvals that they need so that we can have all the paperwork in by that, what was that deadline again?
February 27th.
February 27th. So God bless you, and God bless you from the bottom of our hearts of what God is doing in your local congregation and community.